The bench is looking pretty good, but in order to start getting some of the final pieces put together and move forward with it, I needed to move backwards first. And so I removed the floor and the electrical and everything else that was in here. Reason being, the soundproofing material was not down on this side, so I had to put that in. It wasn't in the front either. So I got that all in, a couple more pieces around the edges and stuff. What I need to work on is the transition of the floor here, where it comes up to the very edge of the van. Now, originally they had this plastic piece down there, and it's pretty thin. It was only like 1/2 inch thick. This is 3/4 inch plywood, and so I couldn't bring it all the way to the edge. The other issue I'm going to have is I'm going to have a floor on top of this, and I need the floor to die into a lip or something. And then also, if we grab this guy and bring it over here, I have to deal with this gap right here, which is just under 1/2 inch. I need the lip to be able to come all the way down to the floor so I don't have a big old gap right there. So this is the profile of the trim piece I think I'm going to make. This top gap right there will be so that a piece of flooring will slide up into there and sit flush with it. And then this gap here makes room for this piece to come all the way down and hopefully sit flush right there. So what I think I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to use the original flooring. I had initially planned on changing it out just because some of these holes were not perfectly squared up with the threaded inserts below them, and so some of them are kind of nasty and had to get hogged out. But it hasn't popped up in the year that I've had it, and this is already cut perfectly to size, and I've got the spot for the battery recessed and everything, so I figured why do double the work and double the money, and just we'll use this as it is. So to get back to the transition, what I think I'm going to do is cut this off on that line, cut it straight across, and then I'm going to build a solid wood trim piece at the end that'll tongue and groove into the edge of this. The flooring will die into it, and then I'll have to shape it so that it slopes down and kind of gets this sloped profile. Although it'll be a lot thicker than this, so it'll be a more severe slope. Probably have to start back further. And that should transition into the bottom of it. It's going to be a lot of prep work and jig making before I can even get to cutting it, but that is the plan. I've got the boards I'm going to use for that trim piece, and you can see that's the profile it'll have when it's done. But one board by itself is not thick enough, so I will have to double it up. Now I'm going to glue these two together. That double board is all glued up to make one thicker piece of wood. And I've roughed out the shape of this trim piece already, and I've got the template up top, and we are going to route it. Now my router bit is not long enough to do this all in one pass, as you can see, but that's okay. We'll do it to there, and then we'll actually use the part that has been routed as the template for the lower part. So it'll be all right. Alright, now that I made one pass with that template on there, you can see I've dropped my router bit all the way, and it'll use the newly routed part as a template to do the rest of the board. So there we go, nice and flat all the way across, except for that spot. And now we'll flip that template over and use it on the other side. Alright, this is the underside of the trim piece, and all of the shaded area here needs to get recessed down about a 1/2 inch. That gives the space for the ridges to sit, and then this front lip will come all the way down to the very bottom of the floor of the van. So I need to figure out how to rip all this out or carve this out, but leave this edge here. So again, we're going to use the router and a template, but I can't use the same template because if I just move this template, I mean, this is where it was. If I just move it back this way an inch and then back this way an inch, you can see now I'm leaving tons of space through here, but not any space through there. It's kind of a thing when you need to move this further back, that template needs to stay the same proportions but get smaller. So what I'm going to do is use, again, the router and another template. I made a second off the master, and I'm going to use this rabbet bit to carve in a 1/2 inch. To carve in a 1/2 inch, and then I'll flush that out, and then I'll carve it in a 1/2 inch again. And that will allow me to then use, pretend this is the new template, which will get set back at about an inch, somewhere right through here. That will allow me to use the pattern bit to come in right here, follow that guide. This is a 1/2 inch wide, so it'll carve a 1/2 inch out and leave a 1/2 inch on the outside. That is the plan. Lots of making jigs for making jigs for making jigs. The new template is finished, and you can see it is proportionately 1 inch smaller all the way around, except for that corner. I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll see. But all the way around, 1 inch. So I've already started a test cut. I've got a flush trim router bit in place again. I give myself a starting hole kind of in the field where it's all going to get hogged out. Started here, followed the corner, and did my test measurement. I've got a 1/2 inch left, which is exactly what I want. And I wanted it right at about 7/16, so just under 1/2 inch to test it. I can always go a little bit lower if I need to, but it's looking all right. I've got some janky dust collection set up and the fan going to try to get all this dust blowing out of the garage instead of my face. But that's it. Let's try it. Got that nice 1/2 inch lip all the way around, and it stops right there because I don't have to worry about all that's going to go straight to the floor over there. So clearly I only did half of it so far. I'm just going to flip my template over to that side and repeat the process. Yesterday I did a bunch of work on this. I got everything routed out. That took a long time, just routing that out with single passes of that little router. I put a chamfer on the inside edge so that it'll sit better. It did take some tweaking in some of the areas where it was still hitting, and then I was kind of disappointed in this. I should have made that better. The edge of the van comes up a little bit. It's sloped up, and so instead of sanding it down and taking my time, I just hit it with the router and then left this kind of nasty line. So oh well, you'll never see it, but I know it's there. So we're gonna put this last piece of the tongue on there, and then hopefully test fit it into our flooring. Got our tongue and groove cut into the plywood and trim piece, and go. fits. I would like to say that that was the first try, but it took several. The tongue was just too tight to fit into the groove along the whole length of it. In retrospect, a lap joint probably would have been easier, but I thought a tongue and groove would kind of tie all three pieces together pretty well. Anyways, there we go. It fits. Awesome. Now, what we need to see is where this flooring is going to die into it, and if I have too much of a lip or not here. Yeah. So I wanted that to be fairly even, but I've probably got about, I don't know, more than a 1/16 of an inch right there. So I may, as much as I don't want to, I may route down or plane down the whole face of it about a 1/16 of an inch so that that's coming in just about even with that top lid. Here's what we got going for the layout for this piece. The door closes to right here, so all of this needs to get dropped down to about right through here, and it's going to be flat, and then I'll sand it down and have a nice transition to the edge. And then from this point to here, it needs to get sanded and transitioned up on a slope up through here. This will all be this piece, like this will be the top of this piece all the way across here. And then the flooring that we have, that vinyl flooring, is going to come in up to this line, that curve. And so this will all get dropped about, it's like 1/4 of an inch or something like that, the thickness of the flooring. So we got a lot of shaping to do. I'm going to start by just trying to use the rabbet bit and hog out a bunch of this flat piece to start getting that shape going. All right, I'm starting to shape it. And I'm using a belt sander with a super coarse, I think it's a 36 grit belt on it right now. Just try to take off as much material as possible. And so I've routed out to about the points that I need to hit the depth, and then I'll have to roll from the bottom here into this up into that very corner. So you can see I've started to do it here. It's going to be steeper here. Once we get to here, I don't have much room to bring this angle from the bottom of here to here. I put a chamfer on there, and I'll probably try to blend that in a little bit more just to get a smoother curve. And so it'll kind of be steep angle, and then eventually kind of flatten out into, this is pretty close right there, but into about that. I wasn't anticipating this being just completely flat, but again, I have to be at that corner right there. So I might try to slope this down just a little bit and leave kind of a, I don't know, maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch flat face on this. But it's working out so far. And I haven't even touched this side. This is my test side, and hopefully it all works out here, and I can just duplicate it over on the right. That trim piece is in, and the doors close. I didn't record much of it because it was a lot of router work and then a lot of belt sander work, just in and out and in and out and in and out, trying to get it to fit. But it's in there, smoothed out pretty well. Got the curves to match all of this going on under here with the door pretty well. The tongue and groove fits in, and then the flooring will come in and be about as flush as I can get it. So that's good. That's awesome. That took a lot longer than I expected. Right now I'm going to be working on trying to get the flooring into and around the wheel well so that I can figure out where it's going to hit this curve, so I can get that cut. And man, I'd really like to get this thing in the next couple days. get the floor in and set so that I can start working on the furniture again. Alright, this top piece is the template that I used to put the curve in the trim board. And now I need a template to cut the flooring so that it fits perfectly in there. So I'm going to use that to make a negative, and what's left from this piece should be my new template. As you can see, this fits in there perfectly. So we use this to cut out our flooring, and then when we put our flooring in, it should match this curve perfectly. Done. Now that we've got it all installed, we can start getting our final dimensions for the bench, the trim panels that'll come back in, and hopefully get moving on this thing and actually make it look like we've made some progress instead of just doing a bunch of little stuff that was laying the foundation for this work for the floor.